All right, everyone, welcome back to the Crucible Brothers. My name is Lionhearts, and today we are finally taking a second to talk about airborne effectiveness in PvP. Now that the dust has settled, we're around 3.5, 4 weeks into the new season. It is finally time for us to give our take on the current state of things with the state of this new system, and how we can look at it, how we can critique it, and how we can improve it going forward. We mainly ended up waiting simply because there was a lot to cover initially at the start of the season. We were busy with other projects, and also because we wanted to see what information would come out from the community. At the end of the day, Crucible Brothers is me and the two twin Goomies. We're just 3 people. It is hard for us to scientifically and accurately document all of these complex systems, so we waited for the community to help us do the work. A lot of people got to testing right away, and we saw pretty much immediately that airborne effectiveness was not what we were led to believe it would be. There are a lot of issues with Bloom, even when you invest what little you can into bumping up this air effectiveness stat. And honestly, it just seems like Bungie sold us on a much different system than what we were presented. We had no idea that we would in fact have to wait an entire extra season to get the full build crafting capability of this stat. And on top of that, it just seems like the documentation initially described airborne effectiveness as you losing aim assist while in the air. Therefore, good players who were very precise would not be as punished, which was the angle that the defenders of the system, like ourselves, took when talking about and defending the system when it was first announced. Because obviously this has been critiqued heavily since the very beginning. A lot of players didn't want this to come into the game at all. And we here especially took the stance that no, as Bungie had described it initially, this system seems like it would actually be good. But what we were delivered was not what was promised. And even since then, Bungie have gone on to provide even more confusing information in regards to the system. And frankly, it's just a mess. And now is the time for us to sit down and talk about it finally and kind of pick through everything that we would have expected, what we were given, and what we can do going forward. But before we do that, as usual, make sure you take a second, like the video, subscribe to our channel for more, help us hit 10,000 subscribers, and leave a comment down below. Those things help us in the YouTube algorithm, help us get to our goals. Thank you very much. Let's just get right back into it. Now, for those of you who know what airborne effectiveness is like right now, I want to take a second, let's forget its current implementation and cast our minds back to the original This Week of Bungie article that detailed these changes all the way back at the end of April, and let's look at what Bungie initially presented us versus what we ended up getting. So for the sake of brevity and time here, I'm not going to read the entire breakdown again. I'm going to focus on 2 key sections here that really those defenders in the early days, ourselves included, focused on to point out the potential upside of the system. The first paragraph is as follows. Quote, "This stat, headshot aim assistance, controls how forgiving headshots are while airborne. If this is 0, correlating to 0 airborne effectiveness, you must be pinpoint aiming precisely at the head to get the headshot. Otherwise, you will get a body shot even if your aim assist cone overlaps the head. Previously, while airborne, players would get full aim assistance for headshots provided their aim assist cone overlapping the head at all." So right there, that's the first instance where Bungie pointed out that hey, even with low AE, high skill players who can precisely aim should not be punished. Now, as we know now, that is not the case. You're still punished. There is still bloom and randomness. You can be perfectly aiming at someone's head and get a clean miss, not even a body shot right now, which is completely unacceptable. It gets even worse in this other paragraph here, quote, "What this means overall is that you'll get fewer misses due to randomness from the accuracy cone while airborne, but reliance on aiming is much higher at a lower stat. To make this easier, you'll need to build into airborne. With decent aim, you will land more body shots instead of crits." And I'm assuming what they leave off there is at a lower stat. So again, the perception that Bungie laid out initially for airborne effectiveness was, okay, if you have a lower stat, no big deal. Good players will make it work because while it will be less forgiving, if you can aim precisely, you will still be rewarded for doing so. We fast forward to the launch of the season, and that is a fat load of cap. Even when stacking perfect 100 airborne effectiveness with heat rises, it is still possible to miss. And that is flatly unacceptable. And it is not the system that we were built. And on top of that, Bungie emphasized build crafting. They emphasized our ability to build around the stat. They even made a very key point of pointing out specifically that this system would not be just put an Icarus grip on it. And then what we got was a system where outside of exotics or subclasses, our only goddamn option is put an Icarus grip on it. How? How are we still doing half-baked systems, dude? I hate to be this guy. I hate to get angry about it. Nothing in this original twab post said that we would be getting half the fucking system this season. Why are we getting half of it? Why are we doing this multiple season rollout of a key, game-changing, massive, wave-spreading system change that affects every single aspect of the one thing everyone agrees, without a shadow of a doubt, that Bungie is an industry leader in excelling at, and that is the gunplay. The gunplay defines Destiny as an IP, and you make the conscious choice to ship this system half instead of the full system. How? Whoever... I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say what I just was about to say. Okay, I'm going to calm down here. So, not only were we promised a system where you could build craft to overcome this new system, the system would still be surmountable by good players. None of that came to fruition. And since then, the further information we've received has also been muddied from Bungie. Season 17, this most recent season, launched with the patch notes stating, verbatim, all primary weapons have their airborne accuracy penalty removed, which means that all weapons in the air would have the same base accuracy as they would on the ground. This only just recently, 3 weeks into the season, in a This Week at Bungie article, was corrected to mean at 60 airborne effectiveness, all primary weapons would have their airborne accuracy penalty removed. So, we played the first 3 weeks of the season assuming that our weapons were just as accurate in the air as they were on the ground, and that went unnoticed for 3 weeks. That's flatly unacceptable. Like, it just straight up, that can't happen. That's a gigantic fault, miscommunication error on Bungie's end, and it led to a lot of confusion, and it led to a lot of misconceptions, and the fact that it took 3 weeks to correct is miserable for the state of information for the community. Bungie also go on to qualify in that This Week at Bungie article that if you can get to 30 AE, your accuracy penalty in the air is roughly the same as pre-Season 17 Icarus grip. Good to know. And if you get to 60 AE, I don't know how you do it for most weapons, but if you can, then you are in fact at that threshold where your airborne accuracy penalty in the air is the same as on the ground. Now again, all of this is great, but we cannot build into airborne effectiveness right now. Icarus grip, a handful of exotics, and 2 subclasses are all of our choices for airborne effectiveness investment. I don't know what else to say, man. The fact that this ended up being a half-baked system, and I hate using that term because it gets overused as a meme against the Destiny development team and this community, but there's nothing else you can say here. This airborne effectiveness system is half-baked. It honestly should be considered to be disabled until the full system is rolled out, because as of right now, it is an active detriment to the game, the way that it currently is. And I also just want to take a second, because Bungie highlight in this aforementioned twab article that their goal is that airborne movement must always be balanced against grounded players, lest it become oppressive. Now, here's the thing, right? I am a largely grounded player. Gumi is as well. We like to be on the ground and take advantage of weapon archetypes like pulses and scouts. We are fine enough to play hand cannons and play in the air. We've done it before, but we both kind of agree that we like to use the air for movement and not shooting. That's just kind of how we prefer to play the game. So we are some of those grounded players that Bungie are trying to protect. And listen, man, if this was the goal, if this was what you were trying to do, I don't know how successful it was, because it makes everybody frustrated, even the grounded players. Because if you pop up in the air on a piece of rubble on the weird geometry on the map, you're now in the air. If you're sliding and hit off a ledge, you're in the air. There are odd situations where you do not intend to interact with these accuracy penalties, and so then you have to, that you didn't have to think about this before. And listen, I agree that the previous system of just putting Icarus grip on it was not ideal. Icarus grip did too much. It solved too many problems. I would like to have seen Icarus changed in some way to make it not the most used mod in the game. But God damn it, Chief, this ain't it. That's really all I gotta say, man. I could rant about this stuff like another hour, but I'm gonna spare you guys. I hope we get to next season and this just kind of goes away. Hopefully the build crafting is good enough that we can look back on this video in like 4 months and just kind of laugh at it. But I don't know, man. This has been an interesting state of the game recently. This has been, unfortunately, one of the buggiest seasons ever, and it's made the day-to-day quality of play pretty rough. And I have nothing but sympathy for Bungie for what they're going through right now, trying to fix all of this stuff. But I can't help but feel and identify with the people who think that Bungie aren't paying attention to the PvP community at all, because these changes just seem to be constantly incongruent with what the large majority of the player base is saying and feeling. I don't know if Bungie watches Destiny YouTube content or Twitch content or pays attention. It looks like these changes come straight off of the Reddit, and the Reddit is a cesspool. So I don't know, man. It's an interesting state of the game. That is it, though. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment. I'm just gonna go maybe play some PvE, which is a weird thing for me to say, because I love grinding the Crucible, man. Even when it's bad, I'll still play. But anyway, my name is Lionhearts. Goomy helped me a lot with this rant. He's in the background. Make sure you guys stay tuned for streams and more videos. We love you. You guys have a good day.